I understand it now. I get it. Y'all can't stand the mirror that's been put in front of your face. All of the shit that y'all have been serving for the last few decades now against minority communities. Y'all can't stand having to look at it when it affects you. See, that's the thing. I finally get it. It took me a lot of time because I'm thinking, why are people reacting so violently to this? And it reminds me of the very first event that I had when I was escaping the alt-right pipeline and changing my mindset of that. Was that anger and violence. Because see, here's the thing. And here's the thing you really don't understand because you refuse to put yourself in other people's shoes and actually be empathetic to other people's situations. How do y'all think the black community has felt for the last 5 years since George Floyd has died? All the memes y'all shared about that. How do you think they felt about the memes about Breonna Taylor, you know, the woman who was gunned down in her sleep during a no-knock raid? How do you think the Latino community has felt for the last 8 months with y'all cheering Trump for his deportation efforts and buying merch for Alligator Alcatraz and egging it on that human suffering is a great thing for this country? How do you think the gay community felt with all the jokes y'all made about the Pulse nightclub shooting a few years back in Orlando that killed 50 plus people in a predominantly gay club? You are truly experiencing for the first time how it tastes. The hatred y'all have been spilling out of your guts for years finally comes back at you. And that's the thing you don't like. But you know what? The funny thing about all of it is, where's the black community calling for war with how you have treated them? Where's the Latino community going up in arms and calling for war? And no, fighting off ICE and protesting, that is not war. That is civil disobedience, and that is our First Amendment right. But calling for the bloodshed of innocent civilians because they make jokes about a dead man who spent his entire political career actively making these communities worse with his rhetoric and their situations worse? Where's their calls for war? See, you're just now kind of coming out of the illusion that your hatred and bigotry that you claim is free speech is free of consequences from the actions of what you just said. Because you only ever say it online. Because when you do say it to someone's face, you almost always outnumber them 5-1. You almost always catch people in situations where they're at a disadvantage, so when you say these things, you're protected. But now with Charlie, in his situation, you're having to come to reality for the first time of the vile and awful things that you believe in, and you don't like it. You're having to eat that. You're having to stare it in the face, and what's your first response? To be violent and angry towards innocent people. Because you scream that everyone's entitled to their opinion. You love dark humor, but the second you see people making jokes about Charlie Kirk being gone, oh, that's too far? Oh, that's too far. The Halloween costumes of George Floyd being strangled to death. Oh, let's not even glaze over the fact that I'm seeing a bunch of posts going, congratulations, George Floyd, for being 5 years sober, because he's dead. But now you want us to care. You're now noticing just how little actual emotion, like how little actual empathy and sympathy exist amongst your own ranks. Because the funniest thing about this entire situation is the fact that it was one of your own that killed him. It was a 22-year-old white kid from Utah who came from a conservative GOP family that loved Trump. And he was a registered Republican. So if you really, really, really think you want war or bloodshed with innocent people, how about you look in a mirror and why don't you sit there for a few days and actually digest and break down your beliefs? Because I'm sure it's screaming at you from the inside. I remember feeling that a lot whenever I was younger in the alt-right, was there's this interior voice that's screaming that the things you are saying and doing are wrong, but you don't care because it's getting you brownie points with the people around you because you've surrounded yourself with hateful people. How about you actually think for a few days on your politics and your beliefs? Because at the moment, y'all are disgusting. Y'all call us disgusting for celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. We think you're disgusting because really Charlie Kirk is no different than any child that has been shot in a school for the last fucking 2 decades. The things we have been trying to prevent, the things we've been trying to stop, the pain that these incidents cause families, yeah, how about you think about which side you've been fighting on that for a while?
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, Africans. I hope you're faring well where you are, and if you ain't faring well, please fare well where you are. So today, let's go all the way to Cameroon. Yeah, Cameroon is known for having very good footballers in Africa. You know, in West Africa is where we have the best footballers. Even though I'm not a fan of football, but in West Africa we have more footballers than on this other side that I reside in, East Africa. So in Cameroon we have a proverb that says, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers, right? The axe forgets. What does the axe do? It cuts down trees, right? And remember this, the axe was once a member of the trees. Now it comes back and cuts down its brothers and sisters. It forgets who it was, but the tree remembers. So this old saying from Cameroon tells us a deep truth about pain and history. Those who cause harm may forget it quickly, but those who receive the wound never forget. The cut stays in the memory of the tree long after the axe has moved on. This is the story of America, the story of a nation built on both dreams and wounds. Right? This is the story of America. It's built on wounds and dreams. It's also built on freedom for some and captivity for others. It is the story of how the same hand that built a flag of liberty also built chains, borders, and prisons. So to understand America today, the America of Trump, what I call Trumpism, deportations, white fear, and racial confusion, we must begin by deconstructing the myths that built it. For behind every skyscraper and every shining promise of the American dreams, there stands a shadow, a silent story of people erased, people excluded, and people fighting to breathe. Yes. So we are going to dive into this video where you are going to find that some white people thought that they would never face the fate of deportations like the minority have been facing. The black people, the Latinas, the Asians, they were being deported up and down until now Trump started deporting white people as well. So they're facing themselves in the mirror and they don't like the image they are seeing. That is what we are going to delve in today. We have a video we are going to watch. Let's watch it, get an analysis, get an understanding of the current situation. I shall get back by the end of the video, of course, where we shall also have a deep, critical analysis. Let's dive in.
I don't appreciate when Republican politicians and pundits try and gaslight millions of people into having sympathy for a man who spent his entire career as a political activist actively dehumanizing people in this country. I will not have empathy nor sympathy for a man who used every single inch of his political power to sway politics in the way he did in this country towards making it as broken as he did. That man actively encouraged the thing that happened to him. I don't appreciate when Republicans try and pull this, oh, Democrats own this. No, we have tried for the last 2 decades, really since Columbine, for stricter gun laws and common sense gun laws in this country to alleviate the pain that these incidents cause families. This man completely agreed that children should die for the Second Amendment. I will have no sympathy for a man who couldn't even give families the decency of figuring out whether or not their kids were alive or dead before he would get online and spew his bigotry and hatred about the situation to millions of people and even encourage it. I will have no empathy for those that say empathy is a sin or that empathy is a new age term that causes damage. No, you will get no sympathy from me, nor millions of people like me. I mean, for fuck's sake, the president couldn't even be a decent human enough to fly the flag at half-mast when 2 Democratic politicians were assassinated earlier this year. But now the flag is going to fly at half-mast for a Republican pundit till Sunday. So no, I will not be taking the high road, because every time in my life I have tried to take the high road with people like you, it never works out. You guys have exhausted the goodwill of this country and its countrymen, and you fully deserve the consequences of your actions. I will not show sympathy to a human being who is directly responsible for so many of the current problems we have in this country and how much he egged those problems to be worse. Do you know who this lies on? This lies on Republican politicians and the NRA and all of their lobbyists who for decades have stalled forward progress in this country for their own political and financial gain. I will have no sympathy when a man as vile as this, because it's not just his opinions. All right, get that out of your head. I don't hate this man just because of his opinions. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, you moron. What I hate him for is the fact that he has directly influenced our politics. He used his platform to make people's lives worse, millions of people's lives worse. I don't hate him for his opinion. I hate him for his actions, because actions speak louder than words every time. I don't care how good of a person you say you are or how right you say you are. When your actions directly lead to the consequences that we have seen today. There was a school shooting at the exact same time Charlie Kirk got shot in Colorado. Where's that? Where's the flag at half-mast for those kids? None? Because see, you Republicans only care about sympathy and empathy when the consequences of your actions finally catch up to you. You'll get none from anyone, aside from your own pundits. Because at the end of the day, the sun will rise tomorrow. The sun rose today. And you know what? Genuinely, it rose a little bit brighter today for a lot of people. Because this man not only impacted the lives directly of millions of people with his hate speech and rhetoric, he completely shaped politics in the sense that politics used to actually have decorum. Politics used to actually give a shit whether or not you were lying or telling the truth. And men like him exacerbated the problem and is the reason we have liars like we do today.
You've got 10,000 new ICE agents being hired. You have 3,000 Customs and Border Patrol agents being hired. They're being given bounties. They're being given bonuses. The age limit is being lowered. Training is being lowered. If you don't think that's a problem, in the past, when we've lowered the standards for these key first responder law enforcement positions, bad things have happened. There have been Border Patrol and the predecessor to ICE agents who have been convicted of murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault. In some cases, members of the cartel, drug cartel, became Border Patrol agents. So if you think that happened before, what do you think is going to happen now with Donald Trump effectively opening the floodgates and letting anybody apply? Not just anybody. When I show you some of the things they've been using to attract their applicants, over 100,000 in the last 2 weeks, and the fact that they're not doing anything to filter out Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and Klansmen, and Jan 6ers. In fact, they're attracting them. It's like a moth to a flame. And the flame is things like this. Posters that digital posters that the Department of Homeland Security is using. Defend your culture. Remember your heritage. You want to deport illegals with your absolute boys? Why don't they just call them bros? Why don't they just call them Proud Boys? Corrupting and co-opting the imagery of Uncle Sam in a recruitment poster with his finger out saying, which way, American man, with a whole chart, terrorism, invasion, predator, these hokey, false Norman Rockwell paintings of a period we never had in America. No black or brown people shown in the photos or in the imagery unless they're in handcuffs. And this is the recruiting posters for Donald Trump. And they're working. But who are they recruiting? And why do we have to lower standards in order to get these people in? These are going to be key people who are going to be responsible for not abusing our civil liberties, our civil rights. I want an 18-year-old to do that? Sure, they can go serve in the military. But that's different. You want an 18-year-old cop on your street with a gun and a badge? I don't. Sorry. And this is not the way. This is the way for a president who's a dictator to scare the crap out of the American people and stand up a standing army that's in violation of our Constitution. And it's going to take federal judges like Judge Breyer to stop him. And then the United States Supreme Court from stopping him. So now it's I've got I can't execute the laws. Oh, let me go round up all the tax evaders. Oh, I can't execute the laws. Let me round up all the people getting vaccines. Oh, I can't execute the laws. I've heard some rumors about election fraud. Oh, seize the voting machines, cancel the election, put my army around polling sites. And we're not that far off. Judge Breyer today, in a 52-page decision, painted that possibility when he said, what is to stop a president like Trump from, on false rumors or any rumor that he can't execute the voting laws, therefore use his federalized police force that he's just created? Us, we stand in the way of that. Social rejection, First Amendment speech, our reporting on as the press, the lawsuits that that have been and will be filed in the future. That's what stands between us and tyranny at this point. But when I saw these recruiting posters, I was like, and I'm just going to spin that. We've spun them here, so you can see them. I was livid. I assure you, I will be back on Midas Touch telling you about Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, other white supremacist groups, Klansmen, Jan Sixers, who have been given a pardon, signing up to be Border Patrol. What's this? Of course that's going to happen. The Department of Justice hired Jan 6th insurrectionists to serve in the Department of Justice.
What radicalized me? What placated you? What made you sit there and think that this is the best we can possibly do? What placated you enough to where you are sitting in life right now and you don't want anything better for your kids? You don't want anything better for your grandkids. You don't want anything better for either your future or the future of people around you. What placated you to stop fighting? Stop fighting for equality. Stop fighting for freedom. Stop fighting for the ability for people to live their lives in a humane way. Because the way we are living in this country right now, this is not humane. It is not humane when 60% of your country is living paycheck to paycheck. When you are more worried about whether you're going to pay the electric bill or buy food, that is not freedom. That is financial slavery. What placated you to stop fighting for things to be better for everybody? Because if the lowest of us do not win, none of us do. Because you can become the lowest at a moment's notice, no matter how good your work ethic is, no matter how good you are. Things can happen. You get cancer. You suddenly go thousands of dollars. It is a known thing in this country that if you get cancer, you're probably going to lose your house. That's disgusting. Especially in a country where most of our cancers are caused by the things they feed us, by the microplastics they have shoved into our entire environment. What placated you to stop fighting for the true freedom that every single living being deserves? Every single living being deserves the dignity of life. They deserve the dignity to live comfortably because we are well within our means to do it. We just have a small portion of people hoarding resources that they have stolen from us over generations. What placated you to, so was it that shiny new truck? Was it that shitty Duramax? Was it the house in the suburbs that you really didn't want? Was it the house? Was it the neighbors that you hate with every fiber of your fucking being and the only time you guys have any kind of interaction is over something like sports? Was that enough to placate you to stop fighting for better? Was it you finally getting that promotion and getting into that tax bracket that gave you the same set of arrogance that you completely forgot what it was like to be at the bottom of the rung? What placated you to stop fighting for the actual future of the people around you and yourself? This is not the best we can do. This is a disgusting low in human history. And I hope in the future, when they look at history books and textbooks, they look at this as the worst, like one of the worst crises in global history. Because it is an absolute travesty how little human beings are valued. Oh, well, they have all three houses, they have all three branches of government. Why are they still angry? Because that's the core of their belief. Anger and rage is the easiest of all emotions to manipulate, because if you can manipulate someone when they're angry, you can get them to do heinous things they would never normally do. And much of right-wing political movements is specifically designed to keep you hyper-reactive and angry at all times. That's the base of the movement. It's the whole stupid reason of the culture war, because if you're too angry because you're worried about trans women in female restrooms for some reason, you're not going to be worried about the bills that get passed that strip you of Medicaid, that strip you of SNAP benefits, that fuck over, your insurance and your personal livelihood. Well, simple. You're too mad at problems that don't actually matter, and because your anger is guiding you, that anger and fear, regardless of how much of a tough guy act they want to put on, they're all terrified. Because that's the whole point of right-wing politics, is to keep as many people under fear and anger as much as possible. So that way when they do these heinous things, it's sort of like this. They're going to blame Democrats for the government shutdown, despite the fact that Republicans own all three branches of government still. This shutdown's entirely on them. But yet their anger is going to drive them to blame Democrats for no reason other than the hatred of themselves. It's seriously... If you want to be the lowest you ever will be in your life, be a right-winger. You'll be so inflamed with your own misery and the misery of those around you that you won't pay attention when you get fucked over and conned and duped. But that's the whole point. They want them to stay angry and mad. It's why you're having so many violent reactionaries nowadays. I mean, fucking shit. How many shootings have we had in the last 3 days? Am I saying it's all of the right wing? No. But a good majority of them, because they are so hyper-reactive, it keeps you violent. And that's the point. Because until you master your own anger and fear and have any kind of emotional stability whatsoever, you will never grow past the basics of right-wing ideology. Because that's the other thing about it. They give easy answers to complex problems that require a lot more brain power to actually figure out the core of, but if they can hit the gotcha moments, if they can make you feel right even though you're wrong, you're not going to care because that's confirmation bias. You've already heard some kind of information, so now that is your baseline in mind when you go to actually looking into politics. If you don't master yourself, you will continue to be the weakest version of yourself you could possibly be. It does not matter how physically strong you are, does not matter how mentally strong you think you are. If you follow right-wing policy specifically, you never look at left, even centrist or left policies. You just immediately write those off as being some kind of heinous, impossible solution. Then you're not in the right place to even spout your beliefs, really. Because you're spouting them from a point that you've never even seen the other side of.
So, after clearly watching the brothers and sisters share their lamentation, here is my deep, critical analysis. The hidden architecture of America is something that needs to be studied. It's something that needs to be analyzed. America likes to tell itself that racism is a mistake, a temporary illness that came and went away with slavery, Jim Crow, and civil rights. But when you look closer, you see something different. Racism was not a side effect, it was the foundation stone. The entire project of America, from colonization to capitalism, it was built upon the idea of hierarchy, where one's group humanity depended on another's dehumanization. The construction which I'm going to do and the construction which is a tool I'm using right now to analyze the situation means that we are going to pull apart these layers, not to destroy, but to see the skeleton beneath the skin of American whitewashing and racism. If we deconstruct the story of America, we find that the early settlers brought not only the Bible and the flag, but also a racial belief system, that whiteness meant civilization and blackness meant servitude, right? So they called it divine order, but it was human greed painted white. That belief became law. That stereotype became law. That fallacy, that cognitive bias became the law. It also became the culture. Black people were made into property, Native people into obstacles, Asians into cheap labor, and Latinos into invisible hands that pick and clean but are never seen. The white imagination built the country and then built a myth, the myth that it was innocent, right? Let's dive into the era of Trump, what I like calling Trumpism, and the ghost returns, right? The ghost is returning, or the ghost returns, whichever way you choose to call it. So when Donald Trump rose to power, many said that racism had returned. But truthfully, it never left. Trumpism simply gave it a louder microphone, a large audience, a powerful hand. You see, it dressed up old fear in a new red hat and called it "Make America Great Again." I don't know if you guys have seen those videos of deportations. Damn! Those families are being broken. They really don't care where they get you. Anywhere they spot you. It's like in the jungle when the tiger sees the monkey, or when the leopard sees the antelope. There and there, no negotiation. There is no let me go back and give my child drugs or medication for him or her to get well. It is there and there. They don't care. So they break. It's called making America great again. But it comes with a cost, a very, very expensive one. Right? So, but what is that greatness they dream of? For whom is it meant to be great? That is a very, very, very powerful question. For millions of black Americans and minorities, that slogan echoed like a threat, a call to return to a time when whiteness ruled unchallenged. The Trump era exposed what America tried to bury, that the nation's racial wound still bleeds up to date. Trump's politics will not be just about immigration or the economy. It is about memory. It is about those history. It was about whose history counts. Trump speaks to the forgotten anger of white Americans who have felt or who will feel the ground shifting beneath them. Right? They watched black people, Latinas, Asians, and immigrants gain voice and visibility. They saw the rise of diversity as a loss of dominance, and so fear turned into politics. Under Trump, deportations became not only about legality, but about belonging. The message was simple. If you are not white, you can be sent back. You will be sent back. You are being sent back. It is in the past, it is in the present, perfect, it is in the future. It's all happening all at once, right? Simple. If you are not white, deportation you are going to face. Yet, as irony would have it, the walls built for others began to enclose even for those who built them. Now there is where the irony comes in. The hunter becomes the hunted. The thief becomes the victim. The racist becomes the oppressed, right? So there's a new irony, right? There's a new irony. You thought you were pushing them back, but you're also pushing yourself outside. In the America of today, we are seeing a strange and poetic justice. White Americans who once believed that deportation was for others, for brown faces, for dark skins, now find themselves trapped in the system, in the same system that they were trying to entrap other people. Some of them are being deported due to legal errors, expired papers, or dual citizenship complication. It shocks them because whiteness was supposed to be a shield. But history is catching up. The system that once defined illegal to mean non-white is now consuming its own children. This shows that, right? This is now a truth being revealed, right? The tools of oppression are never stable. They always stand back on the hands that hold them. It's like a double-edged sword. It can cut you, the one who is holding it. It can also cut the other person with the other end. So it's a double-edged sword. See, whiteness was a political invention, a passport, a privilege, a psychological comfort, but it was never natural. It was built and maintained by fear. And when fear grows, it eats everything around it, even its own people. Now, as America struggles with economic uncertainty, global isolation, and political violence, white Americans are learning what minorities have always known. The system is cruel, the law is selective, and the dream is conditional. There are some steps that you need to follow. There are some conditions that must be met for you to enjoy the fruits of making America great again, right? It's very ironical. Even today, whitewashing is not only about race, it is about memory. It is the act of repainting history so that the truth disappears. America whitewashed slavery by calling it a necessary evil. It whitewashed colonialism by calling it discovery. You can't discover a place with people inside. It whitewashed police brutality by calling it law and order. So they have soft words for hard actions, right? To kill is to neutralize, police brutality, law and order, right? To go and conquer a country, to kill the children, to wipe out the people, to take their land. It's called discovery, right? To go and colonize people, to enslave them. You call it an evil that is necessary. I don't believe evil is necessary. I believe good. Good is necessary. Good is necessary, not evil. Evil can't be necessary. If evil is necessary, we are creating room for bad behaviors, right? We're creating room for bad behaviors. That's why people like Henry Kissinger existed without fear. They did their actions without fear. But you know what? There is someone who sees everything. Someone who sees what is being done in the darkness. And you know who that person is? That person is the very person who brought us into this world with different shades of colors. And he is very smart. He is the embodiment of smartness. He is the embodiment of wisdom, the embodiment of knowledge. He is the real deal. And he is the one who will bring judgment to those people who create systems of justice while they themselves are morally corrupt, and corrupt in every domain and every aspect. There is judgment that is coming their way. I call it celestial judgment. It is coming their way, and nobody can escape it. Henry Kissinger killed a lot of people, but he faced it rough. Even today, classrooms are erasing black history. They are banning books, and they're silencing voices that challenge the white narrative. The aim is very simple: to keep the story clean, to keep the conscience quiet. But deconstruction teaches us or forces us to look at the cracks. Who benefits when we forget? Whose innocence depends on another person's silence, right? The whitewashing of America is not about color alone. It is about denial. It is about refusing to admit that the nation's foundation was built on racial inequality, and that this inequality continues to shape every aspect of life, from education to housing, from policing to politics, right? Another thing that we have to look at is the experience of the black American today. For black Americans, Trumpism was not new trauma. It was repetition. It was the sound of the past echoing in the present. It was the system, it was the same system that was, or rather that once enslaved their ancestors, which is now dressed in legal suits and uniforms. The rise of white nationalism, the attacks on black protests, on the black protests movements, and the constant need to provide, or rather to prove humanity, all remind black people that America's promise is still uneven. Many young black Americans now face two realities. One where they are told they are free, and the other where freedom still has conditions. They are celebrated in music, sports, and culture, but punished in housing, education, and healthcare, right? And so, the deconstruction of black life in America means exploring this duality, how a nation that claims to love black people still fears black power, right? The Trump years expanded the definition of the other, right? The Trump's years has expanded the definition of the other. So at this point, I'm speaking about the minorities. The minorities including the Latinas, the Asians, the Muslims, and the new targets. Because the ICE never miss their targets. They'll always invent new targets. You see, the Trump's new years have expanded the definition of the other in quotes. The Latin America communities faced ICE raids and family separations. Muslims have faced travel bans and constant suspicion. Asians faced violence under the COVID-19 era, right? So there was what we call COVID-19 era racism, right? So these groups discovered the same old truth, that America's whiteness is a club built on exclusion. Membership is not about citizenship, it is about compliance. If you question the hierarchy, you become a threat. Yet, something is changing. Minorities are no longer silent. Social media, art, and protest have become tools of deconstruction, breaking down the myths and showing the raw wounds that history tried to hide. So, I want you to look at this. The turning of the tide, when the axe forgets, the tree speaks. The tree, who are the victims, the marginalized, the deported, are now speaking again. Black voices, immigrant voices, indigenous voices are all rising to tell the story from the other side. The forgotten America is remembering itself. This is the true power of deconstruction. It allows us to dismantle the fake story of innocence and rebuild a truth that includes everyone. It also allows us to ask the hardest question: what happens when the axe must face the tree? The deportation of white Americans, while shocking to them, is very symbolic. It shows that the old hierarchy is collapsing. The tools of exclusion are losing direction. And maybe, for the first time, America is being forced to test its own medicine, right? So we have also another, it was a very long one I composed. We have another one which is Trumpism and the future of fear. Trumpism is not just a person or a political era. It is a symptom of fear. It is the fear of losing control, the fear of inequality, the fear of truth. Even after Trump left office for the first time, the ideology remained in the courts, in the schools, in the minds of those who cannot imagine a world without supremacy. But as with every empire built on denial, cracks are appearing. The new generation, diverse, digital, defiant, is challenging the myths. They are calling out racism not as a mistake, but as a system. They are naming the whitewashing for what it is, a cultural amnesia. So healing is not only coming from pretending, it will come from remembering. America must remember its past, not to hate itself. But to understand itself, it must remember that the tree remembers. The tree are the victims. the victims of deportations, the victims of racism, the victims of violence when evil is being done, of silence, the victims of silence when evil is being done, they are all witnesses of the same story. The story of a country that preached liberty while practicing control, right? So here's my conclusion to all this. Here's my final reflection. In the end, the dream of America, the real dream, is not about whiteness or dominance. It is about freedom that includes everyone. But freedom cannot live inside a lie. As the old proverb says, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. The tree is now speaking, writing, and resisting. The new America will be born not from walls and whiteness, but from truth and equality. Until then, the story continues. Our nations wrestling with its ghost, our people reclaiming their memory, and a world watching as America finally clears, finally learns. America is finally learning that even the axe in time must remember the tree. Yes. This is EFK Original Documentaries. You like what I do, subscribe. I'll surely appreciate. Support me on Patreon. If you like my work, support me on Patreon. Yes. I have like 52 members on Patreon. Just donate just $1 per month. Will be good. It will go a long, long way. Thank you a lot for those who have supported me on Patreon. I really, really appreciate. Your support comes a very long way. Yes. And for you, my other members, kindly donate even $1. It can bring a big change. It helps me bring better and quality content to you. Yes. It's not about the money, by the way. It's about the message. Yeah. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate.